Hello everyone and welcome to today's online session on Procurement Board TV. My name is Ivana Ondruchova and I'm the trainer and administrator at System Proibis. What is today's topic? Today we will discuss three different terms from procurement field. As you can see on your screens now at the moment, there will be qualification, evaluation and discrimination discussed. Terms which you've probably heard at least once in your professional life or private, and you probably are quite familiar with the meaning. But what we will try to do with my guest speaker today, we will try to look at it from a slightly different angle. And the angle would be, since we are talking still in procurement field, our guest speaker today is someone who's have many experience in public procurement. Since, as we discussed with Jan, who you can see on the screen already, and welcome him straight away. Jan, welcome. Jan Zahalka.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Whose specialization lies mainly in public procurement. So the reason why we've chosen those three terms are that even though for the first feeling it might, their meaning might be quite easy, but since I talked to Jan that in public procurement it can change into quite difficult and give you a difficult time, especially for those who are new in this area. So, but before we start, let me give you a quick introduction of our guest, just to give you a quick idea. Jan, he's a legal expert specializing in healthcare, mainly in the area surrounding healthcare procurement, funding and reimbursement. He's active in the field of public procurement, as I've mentioned already, and it's enabling and the use of e-auction in the processes of evaluation suppliers' bids. At the moment, he works as a consultant, and he's repeatedly taken active role in legislative shaping of Czech healthcare system and even public procurement law. So Jan, welcome again. Would you like to maybe add something more from your recent work, what you're working on at the moment, since I gave a bit introduction of you to give a bit more life? What do you do at the moment? What you're working on?
Okay. Thanks again for the invitation. At the moment, I'm in midst in recording my debut album, music album. No, I'm just joking. I'm mainly working right now with suppliers, actually. So I'm still active within public procurement, healthcare mainly, which where I can benefit from my other areas of expertise. But it's the procurement nevertheless, and I am basically helping suppliers to take an active role within tendering procedures. That means basically sometimes, sad to say, trying to find let's say mistakes in tendering procedures and defending my clients' suppliers against such things as are discrimination or some faults in, let's say, equality of treatment and stuff like that. So. Mm-hmm. So it's suppliers mainly nowadays.
Even though Jan mentioned it's suppliers he's working on, I'm sure it would be what we discussed now would be quite useful for those who are working on the other side as well. Okay, let's move to today's topic. And as I mentioned already, why did we choose these three terms? Qualification, evaluation and discrimination. Let me give you a quick sample of what you recall a definition of qualification before we start discussing the first term. If you look in the dictionary, an ordinary one, not a procurement one, you will find that qualification is defined as a condition that must be fulfilled before a right can be acquired, an official requirement. So that's very general. If we talk about public procurement, and Jan mentioned that in this field it could be quite tricky. So what this term, how would you define it from your point of view and your expertise?
Yeah, so thanks. This term has to be explained in line with the general terminology of European legislation in public procurement, which is harmonized with the EU directive, meaning that this term and the general rules of public procurement are more or less the same all across the European Union. That has to be said in the beginning. Then the qualification as such is a term with its specific meaning within the public procurement, and the meaning isn't 100% in line with the general, let's say, lexicon or common English meaning, let's say. So the qualification in public procurement means basically fulfillment of certain prerequisites which are set out by the procuring authority or contracting authority, as we call them in public sector. And those are criteria that have to be met by the businesses, by the companies, which want to take part in the public procurement. Why it's tricky? Because there is a qualification in a let's say more narrower or more common sense, which means, for example, a qualification of staff, of certain staff. If you want to, let's say, hire, I don't know, programmers or some IT personnel, then it is okay and it is completely understandable that you want to check their qualification in the sense of their education, their work experience and stuff like that. But that is not what we understand a qualification in the general sense in public procurement. Qualification is basically admissibility. That means that even the chance to even apply or to bid in the public tender, these qualifications usually take form of some let's say documents that has to be have to be included in the bid. Usually it's some criminal records, business registries, but sometimes it could be even documents about certain level of let's say turnover of the company. And one of the mostly used and also mostly misused is a qualification in terms of, let's say, references, which means previous experience with similar or same subject or subject matter as is the subject matter of the current bidding procedure. Meaning that let's say that the contracting authority wants to eliminate inexperienced suppliers from the tendering. Therefore, setting out minimum criteria, let's say that you have to, your company has to have experience with at least one or two or maybe three similar, let's say, deliveries in past 3 years. This is a typical qualification requirement, and this is what is understood by qualification. It usually means a lot of papers, formalities, and at the same time, it means the basic, let's say, basic door that has to be unlocked in order to even consider taking part in a tender. Without fulfilling the qualification, there is no chance even thinking about the tender, basically.
Mm-hmm. Since we mentioned that you're working more mainly with the supplier side of in the procurement, is there anything you would recommend from those fulfilling the requirements? What they should be aware of? What do they be concerning? Like any things they shouldn't forget. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, no. That's I completely understand the question. That's basically the basic question. Well, there are let's say there is one principal thing for let's say the suppliers, apart from the material side. That means checking that I even that my company fulfills the criteria at all materially. Also, to bear in mind that the qualification means before all a lot of official documents, which are the let's say criminal records, which are let's say some declarations from even tax office or social security offices. Those are all documents that take time to obtain. So from the supplier side, I would say that the main thing is to give yourself enough time to obtain all the documents, because you have to contact certain offices. Those offices work within their own time frame, and some things you can hurry yourself, but some documents where you have to rely on public authorities, it's better to sort them out sooner than later. That would be for the suppliers. And
From the public
from the other side,
authority, from the other side, yes. Maybe a quick
yes, one maybe
key
one thing
message.
I'm encountering quite repeatedly is that the basic principle of the qualification is that it concerns, or it is concerned with the company that basically bids, not with the subject matter. So if you're buying, let's say, cars, do not make qualification about the car you want to buy. Make it about the company that you want to be your supplier. The qualification cannot, by the European standards and European legislation, qualification cannot be concerned with the product itself. It has to have the connection to the supplier. So this is a big mistake sometimes. I can see that the contracting authorities are trying to sneak in some requirements which consider the end product, the product they want to buy, and are not concerned with the companies themselves. And as such qualification is outside the allowed scope. So such qualification would be unlawful.
Yes. I guess that would move us to the third term, which we will discuss, which is discrimination. But okay, let's move to the second one. We discussed the first one, which comes, you are qualified from the both sides, either the supplier or the procurement authority, which is carrying out the tender. So here comes the second part, which is evaluation. Now, once we have the bids, if I go again by the simple definition of what the evaluation term means, you would find something like the making of a judgment about the amount, number, or a value of something, or assessment. So if we go again to a public procurement, what this term stands in this field? Evaluation.
Yes, it is now, I would say, maybe the meaning of the term itself is a little less tricky in this regard. It is certainly an assessment, and it is the evaluation of the, let's say, already admissed or assessed bids or tenders, let's say, between each other. So the basic assessment, which includes the qualification as such, basically has some kind of, let's say, maybe binary quality to it. What I mean by that is that in the first phase of the assessment, you are basically saying admissible, non-admissible. So after you, let's say, filter the tenders which are okay within your requirements, then you have to somehow put them in order. You have to choose the winner, basically. And this is what we call evaluation. And what is maybe more tricky in the public environment or in public sector is the fact that European Union in past years changed its terminology within the evaluation procedure, so that what in the past what we understood as the most, let's say, economically advantageous tender which usually meant the combination of a price and quality criteria. Right now in the European Union is meaning is the general term for any evaluation as such. So what I mean by this, and what is often confusing for people trying to enter this field, is that each tender, let's put it like this, each tender or each tendering procedure is considered to be decided upon most economically advantageous tender, which means right now either price or combination of price and quality criteria. In the past, it meant only the latter. So there was either it was just the price, or there was this economical advantageousness, if it's even the word in English. But anyways, European Union moved this term from its original meaning and made it the, let's say, the roof term for all forms of evaluation. So this is one thing to maybe take note of. And then within this economically most advantageous tender, you can encounter evaluation either based solely on price or based on price quality ratio. Let's call it like this, which is the language of the European directive. So this is maybe one thing to note about the evaluation, and most important is that you have to be careful when talking about what principles or what methods of evaluation are used within public procurement.
I'm sure this can be applicable also in the private sector, because as I'm familiar with that, there are many, for example, bigger companies who have strictly the rules how they should evaluate the bids, and they also consider both the price and the quality. Okay, so that's for the evaluation, and now we move to the the third term, which would be discrimination. So let me give you a quick, simple definition of this term as well. It would be a condition that must be fulfilled before a right can be acquired, an official requirement. Sorry. So Jan, you before we talk about what you do, most likely nowadays that your scope of what you do mostly nowadays is the discrimination. Could you, from your point of view, give us a simple definition of what discrimination stands to you? From your experience.
Yes. So the discrimination is very popular term, and I mean even socially right now maybe connected to, let's say, racial questions in Western Europe, but also very similarly this term has these negative connotations within the tendering or within the public procurement, because the term as such, discriminate, means to discern, basically from Latin, which means to notice a difference or treat differently upon some differences, which in a general term shouldn't be that much of a problem. But within its negative meaning, it means unright, unfair, or unlawful even, unlawful, let's say, unlawful tender conditions, or now I'm a little bit stuck and for words, but meaning that let's say the contracting authority or the one drafting the tendering conditions is basically looking in one direction more than in the other direction, and maybe just a little bit prefers and makes it a little more advantageous for some of the potential participants of the tender.
Yeah, I guess going back to what we discussed at the very beginning of this session, related to the qualification that, for example, they have the contracting authority. I guess now it's also could be talking both sides, private or public sector, that if they have something certain or a product a certain on their mind, they would slightly do all they can do to win Yeah.
If I may, in the public sector, there is sometimes a confusion which says, or I can see it from the side of suppliers, that when they basically do not have the product which is requested, they feel it as a discrimination. Let's say you are buying this kind of cars or cars with these properties. I have different cars, therefore, I cannot fulfill your requirements. Therefore, I am being discriminated against. This is not really the case with the legislation. And what is maybe the most important takeaway for this is that it is okay for the contracting authorities, for the buyers, to set out their requirements, to put down and really insist on certain qualities and certain properties of what they are buying, if no, or as long as it is justified, as long it is objectively justified. That's maybe the part which is often omitted while talking about discrimination, because obviously any requirement about the subject matter of the tender somehow narrows the field of possible suppliers by its very definition, by its very nature. But it doesn't always mean this consists unlawful discrimination. Unlawful discrimination happens when those requirements which are narrowing the competition are not justified. They are made up, and their sole purpose is to just really narrow down the competition or even exclude the competition. Then we are talking about the discrimination. But it doesn't mean, and often is misunderstood on both sides, that the contracting authority cannot form their requests properly. No, they can and they should, because they have to take care of the money they are stewarding, let's say. So they need to set out their requirements, and they shouldn't be afraid of a discrimination accusation, as long as they are sure that they have objective justification for all their requirements. Then it cannot be a discrimination if it's justified and objective.
Yeah, I guess this is a great question, this very slight, thin line, which I guess on both sides can be, as you mentioned, misunderstood, even though at the very beginning they were done in a good meaning, that, for example, someone is certain that if a certain type of a car has been working for them very well, and they have a reason to believe that it's a good investment, as you mentioned, that they should be able to choose the car they would like to be using. So since we went through all three terms and we ran off our time, any question for the conclusions? Questions for the conclusion, as far as you, since you have a long time of experience in this field, a short key message for both sides.
Okay. I deliberately insisted on keeping discrimination within the terms we're talking about today, because discrimination can happen on, let's say, all the levels of procurement. You can discriminate by setting evaluation criteria, let's say, unjustly, or you can, the basic form of discrimination usually happens at the level of qualification. So for both sides, suppliers or contracting authorities, always judge what is being asked within the procedure, what is being requested and required. Just always judge it by its objective nature and whether it is justified or not. And this should be maybe the final message, which should save so much time for both sides of let's say, both sides of the story, is try to make it as objective as possible, even if you feel you're being discriminated against, or you are afraid to let's say, narrow the playing field too much. Just always, with a cool head, go one by one by your requirements, and try to be as objective as possible. And then maybe that should save some time for for all of us, basically, within the procedure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jan. We really appreciate for you being here and sharing your knowledge with us. And for those maybe who are having some questions, Jan, I'm sure, would not have any problems if you use his email and contact him, since he's, as far as I know, a real expert in this field. So please do, and you can see it on the screen at the moment. So thanks again, Jan, for joining us today, and we hope to see you on another session next time. Thank you.
Thank you again for having me, and have a nice day.
Thanks.